everyone. Welcome to Unapologetically You, your go-to podcast for insights into health, wellness, and peak performance. I'm your host, Tulshi, and today we have a really special guest here. I'm so excited to bring Becky Pierson here. She is the head of product for your company. Becky isn't your typical executive. She is a unicorn in the world of business, and she has this rare blend of creativity, strategy, and execution. So Becky actually, her journey defies the conventional narrative. And we're going to go a little bit deeper into the podcast, but she's not just a Swiss Army knife of skills. She is a visionary with a knack for turning data-driven results into actionable strategies. She has this unique perspective and a wealth of experience. So she's here to revolutionize how we actually approach product development and business growth. And Becky's journey is a testament to a passion for design thinking, community building, and innovation. She had earned a bachelor in architecture from Pratt Institute, and she transitioned into the tech industry. So she became a subject expert in web accessibility and developed community-focused products. And Becky had continued to focus on her early stage of health tech products, emphasizing community-driven strategies. And that's where we first met. Back in 2021, she joined Boss Babe, and that is a media education company empowering women entrepreneurs. So she and I met, we worked together a little bit, and it was such a joy to meet her. So we've known each other since then, but then she started her own business at BPD Strategy in 2022. So she shares insights to empower businesses to prioritize community in their strategies. And she has this vision to develop 10,000 community-driven products. She also aims to ensure businesses authentically serve the diverse cultures of our world. So buckle up, get yourself a cup of tea, or if it's the night, some bubbly, because I want to delve into her career path, her secrets for driving results, and hopefully it can give you some enlightened, empowering, inspiring content. So welcome, Becky. Hi, Becky.
Hello. Wow, what an intro.
I mean, I never do an intro like that for anybody. And I did pre-warn you, didn't I? I was like, look, this is the intro that I'm planning to do. I feel like that is quite an impressive resume so far.
Thank you. I think it feels a little bit like a crazy maze, but we're finding our way.
Well, I mean, success isn't linear, right?
That's right. That's
Life
right.
isn't linear. So before we delve into some of the questions I have for you regarding business and product design, I actually wanted to usher you in. Kelly is currently, I think it might be midnight in Australia or probably like 2 a.m., something ridiculous. So I'm going to pick on you and ask you, what do you reckon is your biggest win this past week?
I have one you're going to love because you'll be so proud based on our work together. I worked out every day until yesterday. Wasn't feeling well yesterday, but I worked out every day. And I'm very much like focused on my health right now. And I'm proud of myself for keeping that commitment. So that was my win. And I think most workouts I did with my husband. We did a class together, which made it really fun. And yeah, that was my win.
I love that. That's a big, big tick. Okay, that is awesome. What a way to start. And also, okay, so what recently has made you smile?
I I feel like there's just the people I talk to every day make me smile. Like every day, I'm like, I can't believe I get to do community building in my work because I actually just wrote this post about International Women's Day. That's what I was doing before we jumped on, and I was making a list of all the women I talk to weekly, and I was like, this is a long list. And so I think like I just fuel myself and my happiness and things that make me smile is talking to people like this one on one about anything, but mostly like community building and what we're working on in our businesses and just lifting each other up and laughing. I thought entrepreneurship would feel lonely, but it doesn't at all. Like, not even a little bit. I feel like I have 100 coworkers. That's been making me smile a lot lately.
And I love that perspective as well, because I think it can be lonely, but it really depends
Mhm.
upon how you look at it. And
Yeah.
also, you really tapped into something that we're going to be delving into in the main discussion is the community building. It's such an
Yep.
important, integral part of entrepreneur success. And they do go hand in hand. So I love that that's made you smile to have those connections. And the thing is, I don't know about you, but as an entrepreneur, I'm really picky with my time, right? Like, and you don't know which conversations are gonna work out incredible and which ones are kind of just mediocre. Like, you kind of take that chance, right? And I'm not sure about you, but it's almost like, well, wait a second, do I really want to make time for this? And I usually follow my gut and I'm like, okay, so how much time do I want to dedicate to this new person or this other person? And to actually say that brings in value to what you're doing and how you're connecting, that's really important, right?
Yeah, I put a lot of emphasis on that. Like I know that we should watch where we spend our time, but I kind of actually track it. Like I'm like I must have 5 conversations a week. Like because I really do think that that's what propels your business forward is
Yeah.
the root of community building. And of course, we're going to talk about this a lot, but that's like it's hard for that not to come out of my mouth like immediately because it's so core to how I think about the world.
Yeah. So I love that. I love that you're strategic in terms of how many people you speak to. I think I need to start to adopt those types of strategies. But also, I love an intention. I love that whatever we do, what is the intention behind it? Because our thoughts are powerful, our feelings and our actions are powerful, much more powerful when we have an intention. So do you have an intention for the following week that you haven't had before?
Oh, that I haven't had before. Hmm.
It could be something that you've already had an intention regarding, but what's coming up for you in the next week or so?
I'm trying to think of one word and I'm struggling to think of one word. Maybe a phrase is like, I just, I have a new client that I'm very excited about. And I'm also starting to build a team and I'm very focused on like structure and
Hmm.
systems. And I feel like my intention for the next week is to like get very organized, which sounds boring, which is why I wanted to add the context. But that's my intention this next week, like get very organized. Yeah.
I love organization. Honestly, it's so funny because I've been delving more into like human design and it's more a case of, what is your natal chart? What is going on in your life? And how are you similar to the things that kind of have predicted you to be? And I'm a water sign. So I know that you're supposed to be creative and like dreamy, but I'm also on the cusp of Aries. So I'm very pragmatic. I'm logical. I like science-based strategies. I like tangible things. I like being organized. And I love that I was reading more about that recently. And I was like, I love that it's intertwined. And so organization, I feel like I always think to myself, how can I make my future self's life easier? So if I'm doing something and it feels a little bit like, oh, I don't want to do this, but it's very mundane or something that you have to do, like administration, right? Well, then weeks later, you can be like, oh, I'm so glad I was so on top of things weeks ago because it's really helped my life now, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm doing this for my future self.
Yes, there we go. Okay, so let's dive straight in. I love the fact that what is your approach to business? I was going to say your approach to business is unique, but basically, I want to ask, what is your approach to business? And can you share some pivotal moments that actually shaped your unconventional career path?
Okay, so I have a background working in tech, and being in the tech industry, I've been a part of many like 0 to 1 launches, meaning new products going into market. So apps, like apps on your phone, web apps at really large companies like Fortune 500 companies that are building new software, as well as tons of startups building like brand new things and MVP or minimum viable products. And so there's a very specific process to product development in that world.
Mhm.
And there's also a specific way we look at business in that world. And what I learned while at Boss Babe and serving, thousands of women entrepreneurs, watching them build their businesses, was that none of them followed those principles or methods. Like pretty much none of them. Most of, yeah, like every person I talked to, I was like, really, this is really interesting that they don't know these methods. And so that's what inspired me to go and kind of basically teach tech industry process to online entrepreneurs that never worked in tech, so they don't know that stuff. So what I'm trying to do is make that terminology and the way of doing things accessible. So let me put this like in process for you. So instead of a lot of times online entrepreneurs will jump to a solution, they'll be like, okay, my expertise is in fitness. And so I'm going to develop a 12-week program and it's going to look like this. And I'm going to put that out there and see what happens. But instead, what we should do is build community. So, really get to know the people that we want to serve, our potential customers. And instead of treating them like users or customers, I talk a lot about community building. And that's where the side of like online entrepreneurship comes in, because that's not a tech industry thing. So, it's really about building community, getting to know people, really understanding their deeper why and what their struggles are and challenges are, and then looking at getting to know them and then saying, okay, how can I solve their problem? What is the problem that they have that I can help them solve? And so instead of dreaming up the problem and coming up with something, instead of like taking a shower and getting a great idea and like running to build that out, which I think we can all we can all agree that has happened before, and look, like I do this too, but it's looking and getting to know our community members and understanding how can we develop something that is going to serve them so well in what they're accomplishing that they just keep coming back again and again, and you have repeat customers, and it's easy to kind of take them from one product to the next thing because it wasn't random, if that makes sense. And so I think my approach is, it really comes from the tech industry of find uncover the problem, come up with lots of solutions, test lots of things, like lots of testing. That's the other thing that you don't really see as much in the online entrepreneur space. And then really go home with the thing that works. So like if you're testing a membership concept and it does really well, the retention's really high, then you focus all your energy on building that membership. But, it might not work well and then you have to pivot. That felt rambly. Was that helpful?
No, no, no. I love that. I love I'm literally downloading all of this information. So it's really clever the way that you're saying. And obviously I was part of the Boss Babe community membership, and I realized that you were doing a lot of trial and product development at that time. So you were trying to build things as you were in that role. That was your job, right? But
Yeah.
what I found interesting was how the line that you said, that entrepreneurs aren't doing this, they're not doing all of these strategic things. And here's another thing. I think before I joined Boss Babes and I met you and I was informed of all these different strategies, I joined another company and they said the same thing, right? Solve the problem. Which problem are you solving? But I feel as if by design, if we're not in communication with these people who have such problems and have come up with viable alternative solutions, then we can kind of get ingrained with, I'm so passionate about this, I love this, I've had this problem, I'm sure somebody else had it too. And then you're starting this narrow journey, which actually it kind of traps you in this one route, and then you like to try and pivot from that. Actually, it's a big pivot rather than just a small different alignment. And I feel like what you're doing right now, it's incredible. So people, you have to go follow Becky and have a look on her website, hit her up on her newsletter. All the details will literally be in the description box, because she's giving you insight to say this, there's a gap here, right? You don't need to go through the struggle. And then also, I feel it's important because you don't need to go through these marketing strategies and courses that actually don't teach you any of these things. And then
Yeah.
you've forked out thousands of pounds for these courses because they've been great at their marketing strategy, for example, but they may not have been good at delivering that message.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of marketers in the space that will teach you how to do marketing. And hey, marketing is so important. If you don't market your product, nobody's going to buy it. But you have to have an excellent product first.
Yeah.
And that's how I see it. Have you ever bought a Notion template?
No, I don't think I have.
Okay. Well, if you buy a lot of people who buy Notion templates, they will install it and then immediately like it doesn't work for them. They're like, I don't understand how this works. This isn't organized in a way I would have organized it. And that's because it's not their brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so we when we develop a product that's based on our own experience and only our own experience, that isn't a product for your customers, that's a product for you. And so there's going to be, whether or not the high level problem needs solved, like maybe somebody's overcoming burnout. Like I've overcome burnout and therefore I'm going to help others overcome burnout. That's great. That's a great starting point. However, then you need to go out and talk to 10 people who have overcome burnout to understand what their experience was and find that overlap, that theme, the
Mm-hmm.
thing that you should focus on that everybody mentions. Because otherwise you're just basing it on one person's experience. That's one data point, and you need
Yeah.
more than one to have a trend or something to react to.
And you raise a really good point as well, is sometimes we can get so overwhelmed with our own experience. We want to deliver a message and we're kind of looking for that confirmation bias. Like I've been through this, let me find other people who've also gone through it similarly, rather than actually listening to this story and picking apart the things that isn't the point. Is you need to pick apart some of your strategy to actually understand the purpose of it, right?
Good part of strategy. Yeah, I mean, I think, can you rephrase that?
I'm
I'm sorry.
basically saying, yeah, I know. I saw the cogs whirring.
I was
It's
like, I don't
perfect.
get it.
No, what I was going to say is, say, for example, you've got a strategy and you think, this is amazing. It's worked for me. It's worked for people
Yeah,
I know. I've got some
yeah,
information about it. But what we're doing is we're actually confirming that our biases. What we haven't done is pick that apart. And sometimes it's really hard to do when you're so close to that solution. Having somebody like you to go, actually, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And pick those things apart. And it's not
hmm
breaking you down. It's actually saying, what are the cracks? How can we fix
yes.
these cracks before they become catastrophic? Is that a better way of explaining?
Yeah, that was great. So I love this. It reminds me of when I was a product designer. So my first job in tech was designing apps. So I like actually designed the interface and how like the screens link together. So if you were gonna place an order, it would be like all the steps and how that goes to place an order. So one of the things we would do in the firm, so I was at an agency, is all the designers would meet and we would present our work. We would be like, this is who this is for. This is the problem I'm trying to solve. This is the kind of feedback I'm looking for, what I'm stuck on. And then they would present and then we would ask them questions and critique it. And that took my work from like here to here, right? Like, and entrepreneurs don't take the time to like critique. They don't do that. And you might in the sense that you show it to like your friend or like another entrepreneur, but that's not the same thing
Yeah,
as like,
mom, can you just help me? I'm doing this. What do you
right.
think? Oh, babe, it's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Don't get me
I
wrong.
agree
I
with that.
love the texts from mom that are like, this is an incredible newsletter. And I'm like, thank you, mom. And then I'm like, I hope I got other replies. Right.
Biggest fan, right? Biggest fan. And then we need to
Yeah.
go a little bit further out. So, okay, so I love the fact that you are deeply entrenched in creativity as well as strategy. But how do you find that balance between innovation and practicality, especially when it becomes, investigating and developing new products? How do you find
Yeah.
that balance?
I think I'm just very, how do I say this word? Methodical about the way I even my creativity is there's like a method to it. Like, for
Okay.
example, let's say we have done, like in my example earlier, people struggling with burnout, you talk to 10 people that have gone through burnout. You then take all of those conversations and you analyze the results. So we're mapping them into themes, we're looking at direct quotes from people, trying to like understand what are the main pain points? What's the main problem here to solve? And then for the creativity aspect, I will like take all of that. So we have data, it's based on data, but we're looking at that. And then it's like, okay, what are like 100 ways we could solve this problem? And that really pushes you from thinking of the one thing that you thought about in the shower as the only solution. And so even though it's a creative exercise, it's very strategic.
Mm.
So let's say we come up with 100 ideas, and 100 is not necessarily the number you need to go for, but my point is a lot, like more than 5, more than 10. A lot of ideas for how to solve the same problem, because there are a million ways you can solve a problem. And if you're only thinking about the one way you already thought of, then that's probably not going to be very innovative. And so when you come up with all these ideas, then you can start to narrow it based on a few different factors. And this is where the strategy comes in. So it's like you do this creative exercise where you get really like loose, maybe you do a meditation before, maybe go for a walk, maybe, you're having a cocktail if that's your bag, like whatever, right? Like you're fueling your inspiration. And then after, I don't do the cocktail thing if I'm working with clients, but sometimes I do it for myself.
I love that added side note there.
Yeah. Did you
I'm
feel the
totally
side note?
professional.
I was like, oh, we're podcasting. Whoops. Okay, so we come up with all these ideas, and then we start to narrow the scope of, okay, what are some things that are, first of all, worth it for the business? There's high business value. And this is a mistake that I see people make where, for example, they'll be like, I'm going to start this community product and it's going to be $5 a month and it's going to be great. And it's like, what are the metrics on that? Can you afford the amount of energy and time you're going to put into developing that for the return you're going to get? Or are you going to disappoint a lot of people that buy this? Like, that's one of the main things I work through with people. And they're like, well, I want my community to be affordable. It only works if it has a high business value regardless. So you have to look at the business value, and then you have to look at, is it valuable to the community member, to the customer? And that should be the highest mark. Like, we really need to make sure that it's valuable to them, because otherwise they're not going to buy it and not going to share it with their friends. And then it's, how hard is it to develop? So level of effort, like, is it going to take you years of product development? Is it going to take you a day? Like, low effort, high effort? And then that's how you can start to prioritize these things. So to answer your question, like, the creativity is part of the process.
Yeah. No, I
But
love
it's all
that. And
strategy.
I love that because what you're saying is you can still be highly creative. You can come up with all these ideas, but then you've also got your market research to back it up. So it's almost
Yeah.
like saying, really, you can still come up with 20 new ideas just by having that conversation with your ideal customer or the
Yeah.
client, or understanding and listening to their problems and seeing what solutions that they've come up with. I think we sometimes, with so inundated with wanting something to work, and we're so excited and enthusiastic about something which is new, and I guess for us it may mean it's innovative, but then your client could actually give you information that actually breeds a different idea, and that in itself can add to the strategy. It can add to your methodology of product design, right? Of giving them something that they're actually telling you that they want or are
Yeah.
seeking in the market.
Yeah, I often use this like metaphor of the Henry Ford quote. So Henry Ford developed a car. He said, if I had asked people what they want, they would have said a faster horse. People can't imagine like the innovation that's possible.
Yeah.
So, but we can deduce something from that. Like, okay, that means they want to get from point A to point B faster.
Yeah.
And therefore, what are ways we can solve that problem? And that's where you get to like come up with the ideas that don't exist yet. And you're not going to do that from running with the first thought that you have. Something you said I really wanted to point out, because it's very good, is how do they solve this problem today? That's a really good way to do research with customers. So when you talk to them one-on-one, it's like, if you have an idea of the problem you want to solve and you ask like, what are the ways that you handle managing your burnout today? And they answer you, then you can start to understand, like, does that work? Or do they even need a new solution? Because
Yeah.
sometimes the it's very hard to get people to change their behavior. And when you're developing and launching a new product, whether it's a coaching program or whatever, if they're going to have to like log into something every week or join a call every week or do something that's out of their ordinary schedule, you're asking them to change their habits. You're asking them to alter their behavior. And so that has to be really compelling.
Yeah.
And if they have something, if they're like, oh yeah, this is a problem, but this is how I solve it, and it's good enough for them, then you don't need to solve that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's almost like I see like a web diagram just to go, look, this is what your idea is. This is the other ideas. This is the customer's input. And it's kind of like putting it all out on the table and just go,
Yeah.
what can we get from this? And what is meaningful from it? As you said, like that is it worth your energy? Is it worth your time? But then also, is it worth your client's time? Because a lot of times, as you raised a really good point in terms of somebody having to log in to a piece of software or a platform that isn't their conventional email or app and things like that. And to go out of their way to do it, it needs to be compelling. I agree. And I feel like we're competing with a lot of information out there. We're competing
Yeah.
with a lot of products out there. So how are you, I think you said it right at the start. What's the value of it right at the beginning, you know? And if we don't have that solidified in our heads as an entrepreneur, well, again, it's going to be quite difficult to forge forward. But actually, I really like the fact that you are data driven. I love the fact that you also have this in your background, in your artillery. But how do you ensure that the data you produce, because I've had problems with this, and I think a lot of people do go, I'm going to collect all the data, but which data actually translates into meaningful insights into the product development within, say, for example, the health and wellness industry?
Yeah. Good question. You need both qualitative data and quantitative data. And what I mean by that is you need to have conversations, one-to-one conversations. That's quality data because you can go really deep, ask why a lot of times. So this is going to be more of the like deeper conversations, longer paragraphs to read, going through community forums, that kind of like quality insight. Then you need that. And then you also need quantitative data, which is going to be things like you mentioned email is an example of like people log into certain email. Let's say you're developing an email platform. You want to know what email they're using today. That's something
Yeah.
that could be a quantitative data. So you ask like, hey, which email platform are you using? And then it has different ones. And then you see a number in the end, right? Quantitative numbers. So you see, okay, 56% of people are using Gmail. I just made that up, but of the people that you're surveying. So you need the numbers, whatever is valuable, whatever you can collect a number on. But the mistake is people try to ask qualitative questions in a survey, and that's not effective because you can't go deeper. So
Yeah.
like not what are your greatest challenges right now? Like that is not a good survey question because they're going to give you some high level response and you're not going to be able to follow up. And so you really didn't get anything out of that.
So you're explaining something like you want a yes or no answer or 1 to 10 kind of question when it comes to that data too, right? But where it comes to qualitative, then you can actually go in depth a little bit more. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, there's a lot of like nuance and we could probably do a whole hour on survey writing, but yeah, like high level, yes. Like you want to anything you can collect from a numbers or categories. Like for example, I sent a survey to my email and I wanted to know how many people on my list were business owners because like you mentioned, I started my career in architecture, so I was like, how many architects are on my list, right? And I think it was like 92%. I said, are you a business owner? And at first, I had all these different categories, and I was like, wait a minute, how am I going to use this information? Like, I just want to know if they have a business or not. And so I
Hmm.
simplified it. And so, kind of going through every single survey question to ask yourself, how am I going to use the answers to this question is really important.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I feel when everybody's vying for attention, when we have distractions galore through notifications, now I try and control that on my phone, but that isn't for everyone. You know, we all get derailed at some point in our day, in our to-do list. But I always find that if we are asking a person to do a survey, which is beneficial to you mostly, but it also acknowledges that how long is that survey, right? How much in depth have you got about this specific area? Is it 5 questions, for example, or is it 3, or is it 15? Because a lot of times people don't want to give that type of time, with all goodwill and intention, especially if we're looking at a business owner who's also a mom, who also has a part-time job and trying to do everything all at the same time. Have you also thought about that when you're doing those questionnaires? I know you said that we can go on about this for another hour, but I was just curious about that one in particular.
Yeah, you'll see significant drop off at 5 minutes or more, and then really significant drop off at 10 minutes or more. And most tools will tell you how long it will take to take it. A lot of people use Typeform, although it's expensive. And that one gives you like a timer, or you can time it yourself. You can ask a couple people to take it for you and ask how long it took them. The trick is to like do as few. I'll give you a few tips. So do as few open form questions as possible. So that's like the open-ended question where they write a paragraph. I typically try to limit that to like 1 or 2 in a survey. I actually had a client, I think their survey, I think it was 5 minutes, and they sent it to a list of 10,000 and they got 1,000 responses, 1 email. I was shocked. This was very high. Like 10% response rate is insane. And it wasn't even their whole list. It was a segment of 10,000. We sent it to a segment. And anyway, they have a very engaged community. That's what that told me, right? Because they wanted to be a part of anything that's changing. They wanted to be a part of it. So that also, it comes back again to community building. I've seen people with huge lists in a survey and get like very little response at all. And
Yeah.
I've seen people with like the one I just mentioned where they got a crazy high response rate with a huge list. So it really depends. But my tips are make it less than 5 minutes if you can, reduce the number of open form questions. And then lastly, make the first couple questions like so easy and fun to answer. Like starting my survey with, are you a business owner? Yes or no? It's like, yes, right? And then they go to the next thing. It's like easy. It like was just a simple yes or no. And I think I might have had like 1 modifier, but yeah, it was very simple. And so
Yeah.
just putting a couple simple questions in the beginning can really help.
Yeah, those are really good tips. Thank you so much for that. We're going to have to definitely put a timeline marker for that on the podcast. But I also want to pick your brain. This is a really big one for me. So obviously we can go on for a long time regarding this, but can you walk us through some of the process of creating a strategic plan tailored for a specific business? So how do you ensure there is alignment with the company's goals as well as the innovative approaches?
Okay, so it comes back to that last answer around innovation and how to have creativity and also strategy. So this process I like to go through where we collect research, we collect data, and then we come up with a problem statement and we come up with many ideas and then narrow them. That is the start of the process. And this comes from like, this is not my thing. This comes from the tech industry. And so this is the process I'm talking about that I don't really see online entrepreneurs doing when they're developing products. That is really comes from how they do it in like Silicon Valley when they're developing an app or something. So okay, let's say we've come up with lots of ideas and now we're narrowing the scope as to what has high customer value, high business value, and a lower level of effort. Those are all going to be the things that are like the first things you want to do. So I have this like matrix I use that puts them in quadrants. So if it's low effort and so if we have like a grid here, it's low effort and high customer value, high business value. Those are the things you want to do first because it's super valuable and it's not going to be hard to implement. Now, anything that's high value, but also high effort, those are the things you want to think about doing next. And so I do this process, we prioritize lightly, and then it comes down to like road mapping it. And so Of course, like this should be a collaborative effort. So let's say you have other executives or partners, or you have other business initiatives. You want to look at this holistically to help you decide what to do in what order and how to prioritize things. And that's also where the business value comes in. Like, for example, if you have like a COO that's in the room with you and they're like, actually, this one, we really need to focus on partnerships, and this one might this idea might damage this other partnership we're considering, then okay, throw it out, right? So that's going to lower the business value. So it really has to do with that priority, like ideation there, where you want to come up with the things that make sense to do first because of they are high business value, and that's where you prioritize it around other initiatives. So I basically take that, which is a messy exercise, and then turn it into a real roadmap. And this should be quarterly. Of course, you like have high level goals for the year, but from a product standpoint, it's hard to know, especially when you're developing something new, that how it's going to perform when you test it and how you're going to experiment with it. So you can high level have goals, but really every quarter you should be setting your goals around your products and your roadmap.
For some people who find that a little bit, so say for example, they're not data driven, or they're not really able to um, form the habit of having those quarterly goals, and there is a little bit resistance to that. How would a person, how would an entrepreneur overcome that? Would you say make smaller goals or more broader goals towards that? What advice would you give on that for somebody who's maybe a little bit resistant to that data?
I think collecting data and making data-driven decisions is crucial to business success. So I think it's just about realizing you have to learn to make it work for you and make it fun. I mean, I don't like rigidity either. And it's funny because I probably sound like I do. And earlier you're like, what's your intention? And I was like, organization. But like I really don't. And this is why I have my own business, because I need to be able to flow and do my own thing. So I will set a day on my calendar and I will make it so fun, right? Like it's a workshop day where we're at a whiteboard. So you're collecting the data, but it doesn't have to be so like robotic. It's like
Yeah.
fun. Like you're looking at all of it. You get to I do this one-to-one with clients, and I had a client be like, I posted a video from the day, and she was like, that was the best day of my business in 2023, which was so sweet that she commented that. But my point is, like, she had never done that before, and she got to
Yeah.
experience it. And it's just the like the way you do it is you make it fun. Like you go out, you take yourself out to lunch, like you get a nice latte. It's kind of like, have you seen the trend for like the money dates with yourself?
No, tell
It might be like
me.
it might be like a US thing. So there's like this trend with like financial influencers that will say like, oh, take yourself out on a date where you get yourself a latte and you think about like how you're gonna focus your money efforts, which is kind of like the antithesis of don't go buy that coffee, like save your money. But it makes it
Yeah.
fun, right? It makes it fun. And then you don't feel like crap when you're looking at your finances. And so you're flipping the script. So it's the same thing here. So make the strategy day fun.
I really like that, because so I'm reading a lot more into neuroscience and how our brain builds neural networks. I
Cool.
absolutely love some of the experts out there that talk about neurological rewiring. Just as you mentioned earlier about building habits, it's really, really difficult for a person to get started on a habit. Well, it's not even a habit first, get started on a new thing, and then make it consistent enough that it becomes natural, that it becomes a habit, just like brushing your teeth or putting your socks on before you put your shoes on, whatever it is. And
Yeah.
so when you've got those difficult things, it's like you are rewriting the old version of your narrative, something that is habitual, but it's going to take a little bit of effort. It's going to take a little bit of time, and you're just regraining that new patterning by, looking at it in a different way. And I love the fact that you've just said you can collect data and then actually make it fun. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't need to be monotonous. It doesn't need to be, like pulling your teeth out. And it can actually be something that somebody's really enjoyed, as one of your clients has already clearly stated.
Yeah, I mean, I love this stuff so much that I've designed my whole business around it. Like, I said, all I do. So I'm totally biased, but I do really believe that it has to do with making it a fun event that you set aside time for. And I think we always think like, oh, I don't have time to set aside a whole day. But every person I've ever worked with that said they didn't have time to do this for a whole day has never regretted it. They're like, this was
Yeah,
amazing. I'm so glad I spent time doing this. So just try it. Just
I
like,
love that.
yeah, do the way I would do it is book some one-to-one calls with your customers, at least 5. You can see trends at 5. So it doesn't have to be a
Mm,
ton. Book some one-to-one calls, send a survey, think about, make sure the survey has a goal and a purpose and you're clear on what you're trying to learn and understand. Like what is going to be the priority high level for the next quarter
yeah.
and send that stuff out a couple weeks before and then spend a day analyzing the results, record your interviews so you have the transcripts. So, analyze your results, come up with lots of ideas of how to evolve and solve things, and then prioritize it.
Yeah, and if you're going to make it fun, I'm such a big fan of Excel. I'm going to admit it. But it's almost like you can color code it, right? You can color code it in terms
Yeah.
of these are the trends that I found, and I'm going to post it and note it if I didn't want to work on Excel. I'm going to post it, and these are
Yeah.
the trends that I'm seeing on the yellow post-its. These are the trends that I'm seeing on the green post-its, and obviously mark which is what purpose is it for. But it's
Yeah.
almost like you can put a little twist on something, and if you're doing it with somebody else, it actually does make it a little bit more fun, and to have a person like you know, suggesting these things, again, you're pivoting, you're making things that probably were mundane into a fun, engaging activity. So there is another question actually I wanted to kind of throw in. So say for example, there is an aspiring entrepreneur who is listening, who has been stagnant, who has kind of like come up with ideas, but they've kind of met resistance. You talked a lot about community building. How does one go around just the basics of you are an aspiring entrepreneur. How do you go about building a community?
I really believe that community driven business is a better way to build business. It's more sustainable and it also will make the world better. And what I mean by that is that you're really building a business not with the intention like, oh, I'm going to get rich, I'm going to do all of these things, but cuz that will come. It's about service. And so I would if you're beginning, I would deeply think about who do I want to serve? Who are the people that let's say, and a lot of times it does come from personal experience or traumas. So I keep using this burnout example. Like if you've been through burnout, you're like, I want to help others get through their burnout. Or I have a friend that helps people pivot to tech because she pivoted her career to tech. Like, I want to help others do this, right? It changed my life. I want to help others. Great. Whatever that calling is for you, like lean into that and say, okay, these are the people I want to serve and then just try to get to know them. It's really that simple. You don't just develop the product then. That's what we've been talking about. You get to know the people and you collect lots of data and then you come up with what you create for them. So join communities where they already are. That could be like Facebook groups, online forums, lowish paid communities. You don't have to like shell out lots of money, but you can join those communities. I mean, that's made a huge difference for me. Like joining, I'm a part of a few that I mean, honestly, like really changed the trajectory of my business from a revenue standpoint because of the people I've met. So I can't recommend that enough. Like you don't have to start community immediately. You can join others.
Hmm.
And then just spend time like in messaging and talking on the phone. I'm very clear about my intention to meet with new people every week because I want to understand the people that are trying to build community businesses. I want to understand their goals, their intention, why they're doing it, all of those things, right? Like what their challenges are, um, what they struggle with cancellations, like all of that kind of stuff. And so, in order to do that, I have conversations all the time with people. So, my point is join communities and then start to build your own by having one to one conversations. Like, there's no way around that. Building community is a long game, but
Yeah.
I mean, I started my business in June and I'm already doing really, really well in my business. And I think it's 100% for that reason. Like, it's a long game, but it doesn't have to be that long.
No. And the thing is, I wanted to kind of touch upon what you've just said of, you know, it does take a little bit of time to get to know one another. It takes a little bit of time for other people to be vulnerable with you. If you've got that type of personality, it's great. You can draw people
Yeah.
out to tell you what their problem is, to tell you their biggest pain points. But I feel as if sometimes a lot of people have to do that kind of voluntary legwork. And like, what is your approach when people have to do that in terms of, you know, making these calls out of your own time, like having these conversations? Would you even consider, you know, doing almost like a trial program and just offering it to a few select people just so you can get that return of what are they going through? What are their pain points? You know, what understanding what they need. Is that something that you suggest as well for people to build that community? Is, again, you're messaging them, right? You're not charging them for your services. You're just trying to understand through a different means.
I think that comes like a step later. So
Okay.
from the very beginning, I would just try to like get on the phone with people. I mean, you can always offer them something in exchange. Um, I have somebody I'm working with right now who's a coach, but he only does group programs. So he's offering one-to-ones for anyone that will do an interview with us that we're reaching out to, which is really impactful because he doesn't do those. And so people will jump at it. And so they'll
Mm,
talk to me on his behalf. Um, so you can offer some kind of incentive, but I would do that first as like a small thing. Just make sure it's aligned to your business. I know someone else who's a social media marketer who I'm helping her with her digital products, and she offers a free audit in exchange for doing a call. And so she does her full like audit process, which costs a couple $100. So
mm,
so that's something you can give away. The group program should come after you've done that first part, because then it's like get to know what the program should be because you on a high level sell them something. And I am a big fan of beta, what you're describing as a beta, but you can make it paid, just make it less money. So like highly discount it. This is my approach. I highly discount the first round. Like my program I just ran is I did like a third of the cost for the first people that joined, and then I raised it a little bit. Now
yeah.
to like half the cost of the next round that I'm going to launch that will be twice as much money, right? And
Yeah.
so launching the beta allows people to get in that are interested that you talk to. You can, on your interviews during the one-to-one calls you're having, you can say, I'm thinking about developing something like this. Would you be interested? And you say that at the end, the very end. And then you're kind of also gauging their interest.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I would do it later. And it doesn't have to be unpaid. I mean, because they're going to get value out of it too. And so, and you
Yeah.
also want to think about the energy and effort you're putting in and not burn yourself out by doing something free, unless you can afford to do that, but many people can't.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And that's the thing, you're not devaluing your services by offering them, you know, a discounted price. You're actually getting a good return for it in that same aspect. You know, as we talked about, it's that beta testing, but also you still get to have that time, effort, and energy to discount it at a certain rate. So it's almost like a win-win situation. Other people are getting the value from it, but you're also getting something else regarding your business. So you don't need to devalue yourself on what you're offering. But I think that we can literally talk for another hour regarding all of this, because I feel like as a person who is data driven when it comes to strength and conditioning, I'm not that hot off the mark when it comes to businessing. So when it comes to entrepreneurship and comes to developing products, you do need to source incredible people who are good at what they do. And I'm such a big advocate about having you as an ally and just go, okay, Becky, what can we do with this? How can we move forward with this? So if you are interested, hit Becky up. But I just want to ask you actually one final question before we go. Um, you mentioned that you suffered burnout, and this was almost in a very important time during your career. So things were needing to shift, things were up in the air. And I'm not going to go into the story, you can delve into the details. But this was almost just before you started your own company, because I know your own company had been brewing at the back of your mind for a very long time. And so how did you make time and space for your own wellness as an entrepreneur? And what are your three main strategies to unwind? And it could be mentally, physically, and emotionally, or all three. What strategies do you manage as an entrepreneur besides putting together and sticking to the physical workouts and being consistent with that?
Yeah. I think last year, yeah, stress got to me. I was trying to do too many things for a while and it just kept compiling and I never took a break. And it was probably a period of like, I don't know, a year that I was going through just like doing too much and not taking care of myself. And that really impacted my health. Like I was sick a lot at the end of last year. Um, weight gain, just a lot of stress. I think it had a lot to do with cortisol levels. And so right now, I'm just very focused on prioritizing the work that feels good and balance and rewiring my brain from because I am absolutely the girl that has the hustle t-shirt, right? Like I literally have a hustle t-shirt. I think you know that. And so I'm trying to, and I wear it still. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'm in a hustle mood today. I'm gonna put this on. But and look, building a business takes hard work. It's not, you don't just get to jump to the barely work thing that is portrayed on social media sometimes. Um, but you have to also take care of yourself. And I'm finding that there's a balance. So there's a few things I'm doing. I'm prioritizing my health. I really changed up my diet. I'm a business coach and I'm part of her mastermind for agency builders that is like the whole purpose is finding balance. And so I'm really excited about that. But I'm investing in myself and investing in my business in the sense that I'm pouring into me. And I also, every week lately, I'm careful about just tracking what days I felt really lit up and what days I felt drained, and then seeing what I did that day. Because I get to decide what I offer in my business and I get to decide who I work with. And so, if, for example, I'm working with a client that's totally making me feel like crap, bye, client. Like, there will be another client, right? And so, and that doesn't happen very much. But my point is like just checking in with myself on what's working and what's not. And I really think the only way you have as total power over those decisions is when you have your own business. Maybe that's a debate to have with somebody, but I really think that it helps to be able to call the shots and make your own decisions. And so if you own that feeling and own that like decision maker role for yourself, then I'm going to take better care of myself, right? So, yeah.
I love that. And that's the thing. It's with all goodwill and intention, we have this sometimes hustle mentality that we've learned from a young age. And, as we've gotten older into our adult years, and we think that that was it. That was what we're supposed to do. And it did get us thus
Yeah.
far. But it's now acknowledging that maybe we do need to pivot. Maybe we don't need to do something that's all go, 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 because we didn't have the energy like we did when we were early 20s, right? And it's just
Right.
managing all of these different responsibilities that come with life. We didn't have a partner, or some people have kids or animals to take care of, and like going through that, it's almost like the internal struggle of I want to be here but I'm not okay now. And it's almost like, well, you're already in that chaotic mindset, right? So how can you kind of declutter that mindset and then come back to your intention, come back to your why, come back to what's really good about being an entrepreneur, and what are you grateful for in those moments. But I'm so happy that you've actually prioritized yourself a lot more since because it's been a few months since we spoke, so this was a nice excuse to have you on as a guest, and also figure out how
Check
you're
on you.
doing. I follow you on social media, so it's actually great to see you, that you seem a lot more happier and you seem a lot lighter. So thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast and revealing a lot of your secrets. And yeah, if anybody wants to follow Becky All the details are in the description box, so you can follow her on social media. You can sign up to a newsletter. I highly recommend following somebody who knows about product design, who knows how you can enhance your business. And also, if this isn't for you, pass it on to somebody who actually does need the support. And you'll be surprised how often they'll be thanking you just to go, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I needed. So Becky, thank you so much for being here, and we will catch up soon offline.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Thanks so much. I'll speak to you soon. Thank you everyone for listening to this very special podcast today. And if you found it useful, comment below or share it with your family and friends. We would love for you to be a part of our community. So if you haven't already, follow us on Spotify or on YouTube, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on our latest podcasts. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being so awesome. And we will speak with you soon.